Hey, welcome back. We're live again with our continuing series of community conversations with local candidates with our local raconteur, our local conversationalist, Raad. Welcome, sir. And who'd you bring with you today?
Hey, Paul, thanks again. This is our second interview of the day, and I'm glad that we were able to get it to happen. I have Tammy Kim, who is currently on City Council in Irvine. I believe, Tammy, are you Mayor Pro Tem right now?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
I was.
so you were, but yeah. So that one of the titles that you had was Mayor Pro Tem, and you are running for actually the mayor's seat, right, in City of Irvine?
Yep, that is correct.
Right. And for people who don't know, because in some cases it's a new thing for your city, maybe that you have districts that are just starting, or you may not elect a mayor, maybe a at large city. And although with the state regulations that came down, a lot of people have adopted, districts, but it may be a new thing for you. City of Irvine, I think it's been an ongoing thing, right, Tammy, for a while? Like you've had districts, you've had elections for mayor?
No, actually, so this is the very first election that we will be going into districts. We were currently at large, which means the city voted for every council member as well as the mayor. This time around, we've now broken up into districts, and we've also expanded. So we're adding 2 more council seats.
So it's interesting because I guess every city basically goes down this path in a different way as well, because you guys had an at-large council and you had mayor elections. Down here, we're having the first 2 out of 4 districts basically happening, and because we have a body of 5, it will be mayor, but mayor will be for 2 years. So it's like so the reason I'm even taking the time to discuss this is because I've heard that a lot of people that maybe are not used to this. They don't know. They don't realize until they get the ballot, and they're thinking it's somebody they're going to vote for because they know them, but it's at large, but it's not at large, and it's district and stuff like that. So, so it's interesting. How has City of Irvine actually like done an outreach other than like here's the district map, or how has it been as far as getting that information out to people? Because it sounds to me like it's the first time for districts for you guys too, right?
It is. It's the first time for districting. Residents voted on districting this past March during the primary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in Irvine, we had record low turnout. It actually, when you look back, when the city was incorporated in 1971 up to present, it was the lowest turnout ever in the history of the city of Irvine, with only 37% turnout. And voters, it passed, not overwhelmingly, but it did pass. And so a lot of residents just are very confused. And I don't think they realized until the ballots were already out that it was happening. And then there was a grassroots effort to try to stop it, but it passed. And so here we are now.
What
What
initiated? What caused it to be something that that was voted on? Like, was it the state regulations? What drove the exploration of districting in Irvine?
It was, I want to be clear, I was the only person on the Irvine City Council that voted against districting.
Okay.
Because districting is a tool that's used by the state of California and other places to achieve parity in voting, especially among minority communities, because of the history of redlining and gerrymandering.
Sure.
And so in California, you have a lot of cities that because of historical reasons, have what we call ethnic enclaves. And so districting is a tool to solve this remedy of representation. And it's a good tool, and it is a tool that needs to be used to help achieve the California Voting Rights Act and making sure that there's a representation. And so in the case of Irvine, we don't have a California Voting Rights Act situation. which means because of the fact that we are a diverse community that's ethnically integrated, we don't have, little Saigon or a
Sure.
Chinatown or a little Bangladesh or
Right.
little Arabia. We
Yeah.
just don't have these, everyone is sort of
Enclaves. Right.
everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
And so my argument was because of the fact that there is no California Voting Rights Act issue, there is no need for districting
So
under the
what,
California
I
Voting
mean,
Rights
that makes perfect sense to me, because a lot of cases where districting was a ballot measure and it was voted on, some of the incentive was there may be a California Voting Act issue, or there was a worry that the city could be subject to, some sort of legal action by the state, and so they tried to circumvent it by not basically waiting and going ahead and doing that. What was the situation in Irvine? Because it sounds to me like there wasn't an issue. So what was the motivation? What drove it?
Again, I can't go into people's heads. I can only theorize.
Sure. But
I
obviously there was enough for you to vote against it. So I'm trying
yeah.
to, yeah,
So again, I feel that it was initiated as a power grab to try to take control of various city council seats because it would be a lot easier to pick off people and choose who you want in versus not. But I think it's kind of proving to be the opposite. I think you had various interests wanting districting because each of them felt that they could get in their own people, whether it's Democrats, Republicans,
right.
special interest, not special interest. I think at the end of the day,
Honestly, it tends to be the only color isn't blue or red. It tends to be green.
yeah, yeah. And so I made the argument
Yeah.
that it would actually cause a situation where it would be easier for special interests to get in to manipulate elections. And people said it would be cheaper, it would be less expensive, you could get the grassroots more activated. But the way I'm seeing it is that it's costing the same amount of money as it did before. And their special interests are coming in at the same rate they were coming in before with it at large. So I think, we'll see after the election whether
Yeah, the proof is going
theories
to be in
were
the
right
pudding.
or whether it was wrong, who was
Yeah.
right, who was wrong.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, what we're going to end up having is we're going to end up having a situation where you've got council members that are beholden only to their set of voters and not really caring about what happens the other side of town. And what has made Irvine is great and as strong as we are is because we have every single council member beholden to every single resident in the city of Irvine. And we all work collectively to make sure that we are achieving the goals and pushing the city forward rather than having what I call pothole versus pothole wars.
Right.
Whose parks are going to be funded,
Yeah.
whose streets are going to be paved, and who is going to have more preferential treatment. So we will see what ends up happening. But I do think that this will be an interesting experiment. Now, in the case of mayor, I was elected at large in 2020 as a city council member, receiving the most votes in the city's history for any candidate. And I hope to continue that as mayor, and mayor is going to be at large. So it will be a 2-year seat.
So it actually, you raise a whole bunch of interesting points for me, because it basically, like, I was of your same mindset, by the way, and when I was thinking about San Clemente, and I actually voted against districting in San Clemente for the same reason. I felt that it basically separated the city, it segmented it, it siloed certain areas, right? But I kind of bought into the idea of the districting a little bit, but I don't think it applies universally. I think if the city is geographically defined and small versus sprawled out and large, with like Irvine is, like Anaheim is, like, like cities that are larger, I can see validity in your point completely. I think when the smaller cities, maybe, but what you're also saying, and I guess we don't have it yet. It's like the next, in 2026 we will be dealing with it in San Clemente. Is it puts even more emphasis and importance on the role of mayor, because
Uh,
that's the only
actually,
seat.
so
That's
yeah,
the only seat that is basically at large, technically, right?
if it's elected, yes, some cities, most cities actually in Orange County,
It's a selected.
rotational.
It's a,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
rotational.
right.
And so,
That's how we work, Tammy. That's how we were, and we are today. But in 2 years, we will not be, because they've also adapted the vote for mayor. So, but what I'm saying is, what I'm realizing going through this exercise, having a conversation with you, and the series that we're doing, is I'm kind of getting educated on the districting thing. It actually highlights the fact that the role of mayor, in terms of a unifying force and overarching viewpoint of the whole city interest, becomes even more important.
yes, you will need a strong mayor to be able to hold it all together, because the mayor will be the glue that holds all of these various districts together and all these council members together. And you need to be able to bring everyone to the table, bring it to the fold. And so I think that that is something that I know I will be able to do, is
Right.
bring everyone together.
Well,
And
yeah, because I mean, your role now becomes like you can't afford to be effective in that role and allow for like siloed thinking, or just like sort of not reaching for consensus and compromise. Like it becomes more and more part of the role of mayor to basically make sure it happens. And the larger the community, I would think the failure at that role becomes even more critical, or negatively impacting, right? So
yes.
that's it. I mean, I guess I'm just sharing my thoughts as we're talking. Yeah, it's interesting. So,
Now, I want to
yeah,
just be clear
yeah,
on my opinions and thoughts around districting. So I think districting is an important tool when we do have California Voting Rights Act issues, and there it's very critical. And I do support districting to be used
right.
as a tool when it needs to be used as a tool. So there's cases, for example, Fullerton.
Yeah,
It wasn't until districting happened that a certain district was able to get Asian representation.
absolutely.
Same with Buena Park. Actually, Santa Ana, which is a largely Hispanic majority
Yeah,
city, but there's actually a part of Santa Ana that is heavily Vietnamese,
yeah,
the ones that borders Garden Grove. And so districting helped achieve the first Vietnamese council member
right,
to represent that district. So it
right,
is really important. But then you have areas, for example, Garden Grove. Garden Grove was districted to get Hispanic representation. And to this date, it has still failed to achieve that goal of Hispanic representation.
right.
Um, and
I
so,
remember. I remember when Anaheim did the same thing because of the Hispanic vote, and I remember, and that's why I kind of never really understood it for down here in San Clemente, because we didn't necessarily have those violations. I mean, the closest you could say is, the concentration of people that are consistently being elected being in the same neighborhood, so to speak. Like Anaheim used to say that a lot of people that were on the city council before were all from Anaheim Hills, for example, right? Like it wasn't really, you know, but I completely agree with you again. Like I totally think with the right situation where there's this issue with on the California Voting Act where the parity is not there, but to your point, they tried it in certain places and it still hasn't taken. Like
yeah.
the reality of the land, of the ground. So, but what I was going to ask you is, how's it been? Because you really haven't changed much. Like you were running at large as a city council member, right? So
Yes,
your
was. So
campaign
for me,
has
it's
been
like
it's the
the
same,
campaign hasn't changed. Yeah,
right?
it's the exact same campaign. It's the exact same everything. Nothing is different for me personally.
Yeah,
In our campaign, we are running the exact same campaign as we did when we were running council, and that we're continuing to do. The only thing that's different is that we now have added 2 additional seats, and now like I have a slate of candidates that I'm
Yeah.
running with in various districts.
Right.
And, it's been really hard because there's been certain districts where we have an embarrassment of riches,
Yeah.
meaning we have so many great candidates.
Yeah.
And that's been the painful part, is that these candidates are locked into whatever geographic areas. Um, and then there's other areas where we don't the competition is not as strong.
Right.
And it's been very frustrating for me as somebody who's running for mayor, and I have 2 amazing candidates that I'd love to support in one single district, and others, that I don't feel as passionately about,
Right.
and that
No, I
like
get that. Yeah, and the community kind of sometimes maybe loses out, because if it was at large, that other person from the same district could be running for another seat.
exactly, that we
Yeah.
could choose like the best of the 2, or the top 2 or top 4, or however
Right.
many, because I was always in support of expansion, because I
Yeah.
felt that Irvine was large enough that we needed to add 2 more seats. So
How many seats do you currently have, Tammy?
we currently have 5, I'm sorry, 4
Yeah.
plus mayor, which is 5.
Yeah.
And we are expanding to 6
more?
plus the mayor. So we're adding 2 more. So we have 4 council seats that are up, and plus a mayor. So there's a lot happening. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
some
Sure.
parts of Irvine where there's no council members on their ballot.
Wow.
And so it's a little confusing for them, and then others, there's so many to choose from.
Right.
And they're just representing just a small part. And then for me running for
Yeah.
mayor,
Yeah.
I am now maybe not, uh, we'll put it this way. If it was at large, we would be, and I had 4, I could choose 4 of the best without regards to where they're located.
Right.
Just knowing that I'm picking the 4 best to represent the city of Irvine. But now I got to think about the geographies, and then
Right.
they're like, I've got so many great people in one area and not enough in another, and it is physically causing me heartburn.
Yeah, no, I can totally imagine that. And even for a seasoned person who's been in the seat, I totally get it. The thing that's interesting also is that's a lot of seats at one time, right? For the first time that you actually have a district situation. Like, why wasn't it staggered?
It is staggered. It is somewhat staggered.
Okay.
There will be a staggering. So one of those seats will be a 2-year seat. But it
Okay.
is, yeah, but that's the only way we could do it. We had to add in. And so,
So the staggering is on the duration versus the district rollout. Got it.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's interesting. Again, kind of a fascinating conversation, because it's all kind of new for us, a bunch of cities in Orange County, and it's like we're figuring it out as we go. But yet there's an individual approaches that are different from one city to the other, which doesn't make it any easier for somebody who's like, oh, I get to vote, but I'm familiar with this, but it's not the case right now, and So how important was the kind of getting the word out education wise? Like, now that you've been kind of through it, do you think the city did a good job in doing that, or are there
I think
lessons
we
to be
could have
learned
done,
by other cities?
yeah, I think we could have done a much better job. I still feel that, um, listen, it's hard
Sure.
to roll something like this out across the board. We've got very educated, very informed voters, and it's still even confusing for those who are hyper educated and informed. And but at this point, it is what it is. I don't mean to say it like that, but
No,
it
but
is, we just have to go through it now. And I
yeah,
wish we had done, the city would have done a much more effective job. I didn't see the first postcard until I started complaining about it, saying, they're not educated. And I understand, like, well, we had it on our website, and here I am personally pushing it out, but it's got to be through mail, it's got to be through postcards, it's got to
Right.
be in every there's not one communication method,
Right.
and to say, well, it's on our website.
Right. No,
uh,
it's not enough. And the reason why I even raised that question, Tammy, is because I agree with you 100%. I mean, I haven't seen anything as much as I have seen in terms of collateral mailers, right? Which is like everything down to the ghosting of opponent candidates with some sort of Halloween color palette or something on their things, where it's like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm buying a costume or I'm being asked to vote for somebody because of the pictures being used. But with that being said, I have not seen one thing come through my mail, and I speak for San Clemente, which actually shows like a district map, right? I've seen
Yeah.
I've seen I've seen assembly district map, but I haven't seen city district maps. And the reason I'm even bringing it up, because to a certain extent, it's like everything new. You got to go through a bit of learning curve, a little bit of growing pains. So I get that. But I'm trying to raise awareness through this conversation because there are other cities that are doing this. And so definitely something to be considered is that there may be a concerted effort in education, especially with multiple platforms of sharing that information, so that people actually feel engaged and empowered to actually participate in this very important process, right?
No,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
so thank you for that input. Yeah, no, I hear you completely. What are some of the issues? I mean, look, there's regional issues, and I think that's become very abundantly clear from doing this series as well. Like affordability of housing, housing just in general, safety, security. In your case, I think you guys have also the park, which is always part of the conversation. What are some of the things that are on your radar, Tammy? I mean, both as a seasoned elected official and then also one that's now basically running for this position.
Yeah. So right now, we're really focused on making sure, for me, building out the great park, finishing the promise that was made, ending the years of wasteful mismanagement, corruption, and overspending that existed in the great park, seeing that through. That means a lot to me. I was really proud of the fact that I got it unstuck. And which had a lot to do with the final outcome of where the veteran cemetery would be. And I supported the veterans who wanted it to be in Anaheim Hills. Every city uh, signed resolutions, all cities, all 33 cities before Irvine, every single city council member in the county of Orange, the board of supervisors. So it was unanimous across the board. And so I introduced a final resolution for the Irvine City Council to respect the wishes of the veterans and board of supervisors and every city council member in the county of Orange, and move it to Gypsum Canyon in Anaheim Hills, which is what Sharon Quirk Silva wanted, who first, was
Right.
was one getting the funding for it. And so that really triggered a lot thereafter, to getting that unstuck. So I'm really proud of that. But I know that there's also messages out there, emails that have been sent to my opponent's supporters saying the first thing that he will do is to bring it back to Irvine. Um,
Right,
and
because for people who are not familiar with this issue, is there was a concerted effort to try to place it actually in the Great Park, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
which made sense, I think, in the original plan, way before I was ever elected to the
Yeah.
Irvine City Council,
Right.
way before me. And it had been going on and on. And the, you know, but all that while, whilst Irvine and the previous council we're going back and forth about where in Irvine it could be located, Strawberry Fields versus a
Right.
golf course versus whatever. It's been brain damage for residents. Veterans were thinking to themselves, you know what, forget this. We're gonna move on. And so they moved on and were working with the Board of Supervisors to put it in Gypsum Canyon, where it was already designated what was called a cemetery district, and
Yeah.
to put it there. And I heard them out, I listened to them, and I said, I'll help you. And I did. And uh, we are, moving forward with that. And so
What's the what
Governor
was what?
Newsom signed on, and
Yeah.
so that's what's
What?
happening.
Excuse me. What's the continued interest in doing something that obviously is not what the wishes of the veterans are?
I
Like,
have,
is it just a a bragging right situation? Like, where it's like, well, we have the Veterans Cemetery in Irvine. Is it like what and maybe there's no answer to that. Maybe it's just a matter of the fact that there's certain people have an emotional, vested interest over the years that they've been basically supportive of it, and now it's gone, and now it's something to run on. I don't know, but I'm just, is there any rational reason?
yeah, so, I think that it has to do with the fact that my opponent is very stuck on the fact that it needs to be where the El Toro Marine Base was.
Oh, it's based on the former military installation. Got it.
Yes. And so, and I think that there's a smaller and dwindling group of people in his like hardcore base of supporters
Yeah.
that feel that it needs to be there no matter
The
what.
military, maybe the military connection or what have you.
And
It's
it is just when you look at that site with all its homes and residents and activities, and coupled with when you look at Gypsum Canyon, which is breathtaking,
yeah.
um, it is night and day. And there's a lot of people that refuse to visit Gypsum Canyon to see that it is majestic. It is where it is such a more dignified place. And so that's where, but at the end of the day, the concern is that we need to move forward with the Great Park. We cannot keep going back into litigation. We need to fulfill the promise to our residents. I mean, this is the everyone has moved on, and we need to move
Well, and
on, push
well,
forward.
I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that the mayor's position is they may, whoever it is that's sitting in the seat, may bring up or champion an issue, right? And in this case, it's the cemetery, maybe it's something else. But you still need to have consensus and buy-in from all the people sitting in city council, which is now basically districted,
Well,
right?
which is why I my opponent was the was the champion and architect of districting,
Ah,
and with maps created by a person, a candidate that is running in one of those districts. And so I think the goal was to get enough people to win these various seats, um, district seats, and then form a coalition and form a majority
got it.
to flip. And I think that was the whole plan with districting.
We're in for some new territory, that is for sure, right?
No, we are, but I don't know. I mean, I think that, they're running on a platform of bringing the cemetery back as well, all of them. I just don't know if that's a message that actually resonates strong enough to get people to vote for them in the various, in the
Well, and
various,
if you're trying, and if exactly in the various districts, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking about the Great Park for many, many moons, right? And things have changed a little bit regarding proximity, other adjacent areas, things of that nature, in all kinds of the types of developments, the price points of the developments. I mean, I think the dynamics of when the first conversation was about a great park and we floated the big balloon, and today it's quite a different time. So yeah, I mean it's interesting. What so let's move on to other things. What other things are on your radar other than something like that? Like
You know, our housing and making sure that we've got balance and sustainable development happening across the city. We do have a state mandate to ensure that we have um, 23,000 affordable units that we um, provide opportunities for development. This doesn't mean we're developing them. It means we have to provide opportunities for development. And we have to make sure that we we have done this. So we've provided opportunities where there could be build out. We did it in a way that made sense, that didn't impact existing neighborhoods that were already built out, that we protected our open space, and that we built them around transportation arteries.
right,
So some of the problems that exist today is while our master plan has served us, it's not really based on a 21st century model.
right,
What I mean by that is that it was built out in the 60s and 80s, 70s, 80s, where you have these pockets of neighborhoods, villages, let's call them,
right.
'cause that's what they're called, so Turtle
Yeah,
Rock.
you call them
These
villages.
villages are these circular sort of enclaves,
Right,
and within those enclaves, you have schools, uh, you have parks, you have maybe a little shopping center,
right.
and there was supposed to be this walkability factor. And but I don't think what was really factored in very well is the transportation piece of this and the addiction to cars and
Yeah,
the fact that now you don't have a dad that goes off to work and a mom that stays home. You now
right.
have two parents, uh,
Yep,
double income, going off to work, driving their kids to school, and then causing these and then going on Culver to get to
right.
the nearest freeway. And so none of this was really factored in, I think, into the master plan. And so part of our village concept, we now need to think about how to build in a way that is not adding to the traffic.
Right, and how do you enhance and bring to date, so to speak, the existing infrastructure to where it better serves not only today's needs, but also, to be honest, the changing demographic profile. I mean, you've got communities that are a mixture of multi-generational. You got people that, to your point, that everything from hybrid work to both people being entrepreneurs and basically dealing with things differently. You have sandwich generation people. I mean, even the product. This is an interesting conversation that I've been trying to kind of infuse. But professionally, I'm on the design side, right? So I've seen hospitality work. I've seen high-end residential. I remember the days when you drove PCH from South County to Newport because there was no 73 and there was nothing on the hills over Crystal Cove, right? It was one Shake Shack on the water and that was it. And then all these homes came in. And so the changing product needs too, like a person that is, if we're continuing to build single family homes, when you have an incoming generation of people that are getting married later, not necessarily looking for a home that is a single family with a plot, when the home insurance is sort of precarious and I don't know if I'm going to get it or not because insurance companies are moving out of state, hidden costs of home ownership are things that you're dealing with a generation that got their driving license or didn't even go get a driving license when they became of age, let alone drive, right? And then they'd rather Uber than own a car. So the fact that you know, Irvine is known for being a master urban planned community and award winning and the time that it was done. Doesn't mean, and I'm not picking on Irvine, it doesn't mean that that product still is the right product.
No, exactly. And that's what I bring to the mix. And that's why I've pushed, for example, the Irvine company to look into things like mixed use, mixed development, looking at underperforming retail and converting that into housing, underperforming office.
Commercial even, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And reimagining that. And then, we need to start thinking about places where that will offer a bit more density, closer to transportation arteries, closer to public transportation, where you live and work probably in the same building or same proximity.
Neighborhood or
Yeah, where it's
block,
all
yeah.
walkable, because right now the way Irvine has been built out is you live somewhere and then you work somewhere completely different.
Right.
And it is not accounting for a lot of the technology, a lot of uh, the changing workplace.
Well,
And
quality
so,
of like what today's person wants, adult wants from a quality of life perspective. I mean, and it's kind of an interesting dynamic because the challenges that are happening with the older generation that is holding on to homes, which is basically then, you know, suffocating the home inventory, right? That's on the market. And you got the young people that are basically can't afford to stay because of the affordable cost situation. So the cities are losing people that are born and raised there. And it's interesting, you know, it's like the minute, and words mean things and leadership means things in situations like regional solutions mean things. Like if you say affordable housing and my immediate gut reaction is to basically take my pitchfork and torch and show up at the city council, then maybe that's not what we should be using in the terminology, because affordable housing is kind of misleading. When you say affordable housing and a person thinks, you know, low income tenement housing, good luck. Look at what affordable housing as a, you know, how much you earn a year would afford you you would qualify for assistance in the Orange County. It's not the same as saying it's Riverside or even another state. So I think things get lost in the shuffle. And what you're talking about is not even just workforce housing, it's actually proximity housing. It's sort of quality of life driven walkability, which standards of walkability are not only American Institute of Architecture, but also ARP and other places. And what we used to do, from everything from residential neighborhoods to urban master planning that worked in the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. And we are addicted to, we're an addicted car culture. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But it does require that sort of visionary leadership to look beyond what we've done for the last 40 years.
yeah, because what we're doing right now no longer um,
Serves us.
it no longer serves us. It is antiquated. It is not sustainable. And so we need to think about how we're going to be doing things differently and how people want to live.
Right.
And I think that we can still balance out and protect the village concept that we have here, which is really important because that builds a lot of the character. But then as the newer places come up, we have to reimagine what that looks like, because quite honestly, um, yes, you're right. When we talked about affordable housing, people were like, are they going to cross the border and come here and live with us?
Right.
Now we're talking about our grown children who have finished college, have a professional career, but
Yep.
yet that professional career that even might pay $100,000 a year is still not enough to
Yep.
buy a place in Irvine.
Absolutely. And those new developments that are, maybe let's call them the fill-in areas between the villages, could actually provide that and maintain the proximity. Because here's the other thing that happens when we lose this young people. We are an aging county, and you have built-in support systems within family structure that when you basically have that young person cannot afford to stay within proximity if they choose to of their larger family structure, family dynamic, their parents or grandparents, whatever, you lose the ability for them to be part of the support for the older generation as they need it. And so you basically now put more pressure and more demands on the community and the city to provide support amenities for that, because you have now lost the ability for the family to care for itself, let
Mhm.
alone afford to care for itself. So, I think we get very short-sighted and we work against our best interests long-term sustainable wise. And that's where that the leadership really comes in very paramount, to have that kind of thinking.
No, absolutely. And so again, we have to think about uh, creative ways to solve these challenges, because the challenges are real, and the challenges are, it's really about, it really is protecting the quality of life of Irvine and
Absolutely.
residents of Irvine. And, when we talk about Irvine being the city of education, for example,
Yeah.
how are we the city of education, or how can we maintain that status when our teachers who retire out, and you have to hire new teachers, cannot afford to live here? And if they're not living with their parents in Irvine or near Irvine,
Right.
they have to live out in Riverside, and you want them teaching your children when they have to drive an hour from Irvine to
Well,
get
not
here,
all,
an hour and a
not
half.
only when you say teachers, you're touching on people that are
This
first
doesn't even
responders in a
include
way.
our police officers,
Yeah,
our,
first responders,
yeah, first
exactly.
responders,
Right,
exactly.
or you're a destination in a way for retail and services. What about the service people, right? And then the impact on the terms of the additional cost, and the not only just the additional cost, the ability to provide sustained access to that labor force, right? Where they're not basically saying, well, I got caught in this and I got in that. And I'm not saying that it has to be right away, but you have to have that basically factored into the thinking, right? We
So
can
this
no
is what I'm
longer afford,
constantly
yeah, we
thinking
can no
about.
longer afford to not do that, and that's only speaking within the boundaries of an actual city. But then if you take that same thinking to one step further, it also applies to a regional thinking. And if you reach across the borders of a city for regional thinking, like for example, homeless situation, right? Or affordable housing as a larger footprint impact in terms of sustainability. It isn't necessarily even limited to the city boundaries. I mean, that's almost like our first step. But then we need to have consensus and common ground and compromise to come up with some of these regional solutions.
Absolutely. That's why I sit on the most regional boards of anyone next to a mayor,
Yeah,
as far as any other council members, because you're right. We cannot operate like an island, because we're not an island. And a
and they're
lot of
not.
this is going to take regional solutions and regional approaches to things. And I look forward to continuing to provide forward-thinking leadership and thinking a much broader than what has been done. And I'm proud of the work that I have done since being elected to the Irvine City Council. And I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to bring creative approaches to solve a lot of these issues. Whereas, my main opponent talks about, what he did in 1988, or what he did, with the airport and keeping the airport. And that's, the claim to fame. And I respect what was done in 1994, but I got to think about what's going to happen in the next 50 years. And because I'm still going to be, I hope, I'm going to still be alive, and my child will be alive, and my child will be living here, and my grandchildren will be living here. So I really want to think about, what is the Irvine going to look like, uh, for me to continue to live here.
I will just leave you with this. I have been tracking this issue for a while, both from professional interest and also from just being, involved in the overall arching community of the county. Um, I find it fascinating when people, the same people, will talk about that, Orange County should not be affordable for everybody. Like that it's a measure of achievement if you actually have the ability to live, and somehow that it's a measure of the fact that you must be a really, driven person that works and the reward of this is that you are given the privilege of living in Orange County in certain cities, right? Those same people, if they're old enough to actually have grandkids, the same people that are basically kind of having a hesitation about affordable housing and the need to build more and provide that kind of offering are the same people that are saying, well, I actually would hope that my grandkids can be near me or my kids can stay near me, right? But it's like, do you even see the irony of what you're saying? Like, you got to engage with the solution in order
Yeah.
for that to happen. And as long as it's sensitive and appropriate and doesn't diminish from the quality of life that that community basically stands for, then there are solutions to be achieved.
And I think so. And I have definitely noticed a shift in attitude
Yeah.
around when we talk about affordable housing. I think even, 10 years ago, when you mentioned the word affordable
Oh,
housing,
it was
everyone will be driving to City Hall as though you were setting up some homeless encampment
right.
your doorstep. But
Yeah.
I think right now, after people have raised their children in Irvine, sent their children off to college, their children have good professional jobs,
Right.
and realizing their children still cannot live here, we now see a growing appetite of a growing appetite and growing sensitivity around this, around housing affordability.
Well, and ADUs is a perfect example. Here comes ADUs, right? For the purpose of proving ADUs and fast tracking them was driven by one thing, but it's actually also indirectly has provided a somewhat partial solution for those who have the room to do that, to do exactly what you're talking about. So again, thinking outside the box is super critical, I think, when we're picking our leaders looking forward. And engagement and being kind of involved and knocking on doors even when you are in the seat versus when you're only running for the seat is becoming, I think, more and more not only appreciated but almost mandatory for somebody to select somebody.
I think so. And I pride myself in the fact that I am very engaged in the community. I meet with community members. I am out at places. I do things. I'm hyperactive, and I think people recognize that, and people see that. I think that I think that goes a long way, and I hope voters will recognize that and see what we do, and really want to encourage, forward-thinking leadership, and realize that maybe 5 decades uh, on the council is perhaps a bit too long. And
Well,
so I'm hoping that residents will see that.
we're going to need a whole new show about term limits and campaign finance reform, right? Well, and hopefully we'll have you back on, Tammy. I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said when I first started, I know you guys are super busy and it's critical, and like we're just coming down to the wire. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on. And it
Thank
was
you so
really a
much.
good conversation. I really hope that people listen in. Your website is right behind me there, tammykim.com. If anybody's interested in finding out more about Tammy, please go visit the website. It's a great website for information. And I wish you luck, my friend. And thank you
Thank
very much for being
you.
on.
Thank you. Please vote. Please vote for Tammy Kim for Irvine Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Good luck.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for staying with us. And that will wrap it up for us for today. But we're going to be back tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you with who until you basically tune in tomorrow. So thanks, Paul.